Hi, this is Dan.
And I'm Leslie.
And welcome back to Addicted to the Mouse.
So this week we are going to talk about our financial successes. Yay!
That's right. So before we get too far into this video, we do want to acknowledge the fact that our successes are ours, and this is not something necessarily that you can or would want to reproduce for yourself. So knowing that, we have had some privilege in our lives, and we do definitely acknowledge that. So with that being said, let's get started.
Right, so we have basically we've broken down into our top 20 financial successes.
Right, so there are three basic categories: real estate, everything in the past that we've done to set us up, and then everything in the future moving forward.
So first and foremost, we are going to talk about our housing. So number one is housing, and we have had two homes. We talked in the last video on our financial mistakes, about some of the bad decisions that we made as far as those go, but we have a lot of equity in our houses.
That's right. So I worked for a residential construction company, and I built our first two houses. So while we did make some financial mistakes with real estate in the past by taking out lines of credit to buy like the tractor and the barn and cover the cost of some cars, that was virtually erased by the equity. Now, if we hadn't have taken out those home equity lines, we would be in a much better financial position selling the old house and selling this one, but at least we haven't gone negative doing that. So they kind of balanced each other out. So there are a couple ways you can build equity in a house. One is just to pay it down over time. Another is sweat equity. So that's pretty much what we did, because we didn't have to pay the cost of another contractor, and we had discounts from subcontractors that I had used in the past.
Yeah, so number two is we bought into Disney Vacation Club.
So most people run screaming when you hear timeshare, but this is Disney's version of a timeshare. The difference is, well, number one, we love Disney and love going to Disney vacations, but the difference financially is that Disney buys back certain portions of their contracts that are sold for less than what they think they are valued at, which tends to inflate the value. So we bought our contracts at $71 and $73 a point, and they're selling right now for anywhere between $100 and $104 a point.
So while that's not only going to give us a financial gain whenever we are considering selling one of our contracts next year after we maximize a few more vacations, it has also, because of the value of the vacations and the memories that we have made over the past 4 years that we've had Disney Vacation Club, that we've been able to maximize that, and so we don't look at it as a mistake.
Number three is the last one in real estate, and it is a land purchase that we were able to make. I wanted some hunting land, and I had for a long, long time, and we found just a really incredible value. It was underpriced, and we knew that we could sell it virtually the next day and make a profit. We ended up holding it for 3.5 years, and we made a 102% return on our investments over 3.5 years.
Yeah, so we feel like that was definitely a financial success. So.
Yeah. So the next broad category of financial wins is the stuff that we've done in the past. And this is where some of our privilege comes in. So we have gotten lucky on some of these. We fully acknowledge that.
Right, starting with number 4, which is not needing childcare.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate enough to live in the same town as my parents, and my mom did not work for many of the years when our children were growing up and needed that extra childcare. And so she graciously watched them for many, many years, and that helped out tremendously as far as daycare costs.
Yeah, thanks, Pam.
Yes.
All right, what's next? So number 5 is working hard, which leads into number 6, which is that we never had education debt. We never had to take out student loans. Some of that is, again, that luck and privilege because your parents helped you with your undergrad degree. I had a little bit of an inheritance that helped me with my undergrad degree. But I also have to acknowledge that I was in the military, so a combination of GI Bill and some military discounts and just working hard throughout those years, we graduated with both undergrad and graduate degrees with no debt.
Right, and so whenever I went back for my master's program, I was able to apply for a scholarship that covered all of the tuition and fees, as well as provided a stipend so that I could cut back to part-time while I completed that degree. So that helped out tremendously.
Absolutely. And that leads into number 7, which is choosing careers wisely. Now, I didn't do this. This was all her. But yeah.
So I didn't do it intentionally. It was just, I always wanted to be a nurse, and so that's the path that I went down. But now looking back on it, it has provided a lot of opportunities. I've been able to work nights in order to cut down on the amount of childcare time that we needed. I've been able to do weekends. You can do holidays. You can work in different departments. You can teach. So you can travel nurse. There's all kinds of doors that can be opened with the field of nursing. So it's been really nice.
Number 8, something that we've done several years ago, is to start side hustles early. Now, we didn't start these with the idea that they were going to take us into an early retirement or quitting full-time jobs to travel, but it has definitely given us some options when we were looking towards that. So I wrote a book, and I continually make some royalties from that. Wrote that 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and then I'm a travel agent, and I specialize in Disney vacations, Universal, all other cruise lines, all-inclusives, all of that. And that started out because of the love of Disney, and it's just kind of expounded from there. And then we started the podcast, which does not make us any money yet, but we hope that someday it will lead to something. All right, so number 9 is always having a good emergency fund. So even before we really started trying to save and invest, we always had an emergency fund. And while that didn't result in a pile of cash now because it was just sitting in savings, it did cover expenses that popped up from time to time without having to rake up any debt.
Yeah, so it made that stress a little less whenever something popped up out of nowhere. Number 10 was not ever carrying a balance on credit cards. And so we just both grew up knowing that we shouldn't carry a balance on credit cards. And so we've always, if we can't pay it off at the end of the month, we don't put it on the card.
And that goes into number 11, which is always having good credit, which result in very low interest rates when you do take out debt. So all those car loans we had, the one glimmer of hope is that they were all very, very low interest rates, which was nice. And our mortgage is very, very low interest rates.
So we did something right with those 23 cars.
So that leads us into number 12, which is saving for retirement and not necessarily saving for kids' college education. So that may not be what everyone's priority is, but for us, we want to save for our own retirement and not take that money and set it aside for college education for our kids. That also leads into number 13, which is maxing out 401ks. So any tax-deferred or tax-sheltered accounts you can put money into, that will either result in more money in your retirement later on, or the ability to compound more money over time, depending on if it's tax-deferred or tax-sheltered.
Yeah, and so while that might strike a nerve in some people that we don't necessarily save for our children's college education, we listen to Clark Howard quite a bit, and he always says that you can't take out a loan for retirement, but you can take out a loan for college. So
it's true. All right, number 14, and this is the last one that we've done in the past, is not eating out a ton. So while the few times that we would eat out in the past, we would just blow it out. So it was at least $80 or so to go out to eat. We didn't do it a ton. So once, maybe twice a week would be about the max, and now we rarely go out.
Yes, so bye-bye sushi again.
Moving on into the last big kind of container of financial success is what we're doing now moving forward.
Yes, so we've mentioned it in previous videos that number 15 is watching our grocery bills. And so we have this is more, I feel like, intentional purchasing as opposed to buying anything any of us want. And we've definitely transitioned. It has taken a little bit of adjustment, especially for our kids, to not have everything that they possibly could want in the pantry, but we are all working through it.
All right, number 16 is travel hacking. Now, we have mentioned in the past videos that we are not going to compromise travel. We will do travel cheaper moving forward, but not necessarily compromise traveling, because that's what this whole thing is about. Now, understand that we are going to spend money on traveling. We looked at how we could maybe reduce the amount of money we're spending on traveling, and we found travel hacking. So we'll do more videos on that in the future, but it's essentially using points and miles in order to reduce the overall cost of travel.
Yes. All right, so number 17 is selling our stuff that we don't need and downsizing. So we've mentioned that we have our house currently on the market, but we have done some major purging over the last several months in the form of putting things on eBay, selling on Facebook to friends, just getting rid of stuff, taking it to Goodwill. We are massively getting rid of all of the things that we don't need. We've lived in this house for 13 years, and it's astonishing the amount of stuff that you can just build up.
Number 18 is tracking everything. Now, we are doing this pretty intensely right now. The budget that we've got going on is, it is line for line. Any expense that we recognize, whether it's on a credit card or whatever, goes into a spreadsheet. Every piece of income goes into the same spreadsheet, and we compare the two. We figure out what our savings rate is, and we do this twice a month. Every time we pay off the credit cards and get paid, we make sure to track every little expense by category so we know exactly where our money is going. And then we ask ourselves on each expense, is it really worth it? Does it really make us happy with whatever that we purchased?
And I think that's the biggest important part of that process, is that not only are we tracking it, but then we actually have a conversation, not just like, oh, here, we've put it all in this spreadsheet, but we sit there and we talk about how could we do better, what did we spend money on that maybe we didn't really need to this month, and how can we improve moving forward.
Right.
All right, so number 19 has been a very emotional decision for us. We joined a CrossFit gym in March, end of February, beginning of March, something like that. And we have absolutely loved it. It was, we mentioned on the last video, it's $240 a month for the two of us to go. And so we went back and forth. We don't want to leave the gym altogether. We really, really love the people and we love going. And so we've just decided to compromise down to where we're going to go once a week starting in December, which saves us about $100, $120 a month or so.
And then finally is just looking at how to cut all the other little expenses. So we start big, seeing what we can cut. For instance, like we're selling the house right now. We paid off the car, sold the land, kind of the big stuff that can save those giant chunks every month. But then down to the little stuff. Like for instance, this financial book I'm reading right now, Financial Freedom, we rented it from the library. We would not have done that in times past. We would just get on Amazon and order that thing. I'd read it once and it'd go in the closet.
Yeah, and then now we are starting to look at, I absolutely love Bath and Body Works soaps, but moving forward, I think we're going to transition into a cheaper soap rather than spend that extra little bit that it is to purchase Bath and Body.
All right, so there you have it, our 20 financial freedom wins, how we're winning with money. I spent the last 2 hours messing with the audio jack on this camera right here and figured out that the external microphone jack is not working, which is why it sounds a little echoey.
Yay, so that means that's another expense.
Yay. So I gotta figure out how to get that fixed. Sorry about the audio, but hopefully soon we'll get that fixed. Either that or have to switch to a different camera.
Yes. So we hope that you continue joining us on this fabulous journey of ours. We're looking forward to seeing where all of this takes us.
Please like and subscribe.